recorded on the computer. So, Chris.
Yes.
I am and have been for a long time, I mean, I've only known you for not a very long time, but since I've known you, I've been always really curious about your intervention pieces. And I'd like to hear from you a little bit more about your history with them and your evolution in terms of how you've developed them as a body of work and how you see them, if you can see that, ahead, how you see this work evolving, as it seems like a really strong focus for you. So I just want to learn a little bit more about you as a way of learning more about you as an artist.
Well, it's probably a strange way of putting it, but I'm an artist like many who is very engaged, obsessed, compelled to, express ideas through visual means. And there have been times throughout my life, probably all the time, where here and there's a thread of what's going on socially or politically, even though it's most likely not that apparent when you look at the work that I've done throughout my life. But I arrived at doing these interventions because I went to a residency in Berlin, and it was a residency where the director asks that each artist, because it's one artist at a time, you're offered a live-work situation in the center of Berlin. And in exchange, you are asked to create a piece of art that is an outward-facing project. That's something that engages the public, engages the community. And when I arrived there, I had ideas as to what that would be, but when I arrived, I really hadn't settled on an idea, and I felt like I needed to get there and see the lay of the land, see what I felt being there. So I spent about a week and a half where I didn't, I worked on things, but I didn't have the plan for the outward-facing project. So I did arrive at this idea of doing a skin color project. And I am aware that other artists have used skin colors as an idea. I'm aware of who they are, blah, blah, blah. But I had come from a job in fashion where I was using Pantone, the Pantone color system. And I thought, what if I incorporate skin colors as sort of turning Pantone upside down. So instead of this is purple, the color of the year, the color of the month or whatever, and then a little, like a pretty name for purple. I felt like I was subverting Pantone, subverting the idea of design and using color for design. And so I made 25 pieces that presented various colors of skin that then would have text on the bottom. The text referred to skin and how, basically it was, this idea wasn't super complex and profound in a way. It was more like a communication, which is what I thought that this project should be anyway. Because if you're engaging the community, interacting with the community, you want to be able to give them an idea, something they can consider or chew on or whatever. So I posted them in 25 spots throughout. They were maybe 30 by 22 inches, watercolor paper. Each one was different. And the text on the bottom like described what the project was about. And then it was translated into German. So it actually was like sort of labor intensive. There was a catalog that was made. I had to get a translator and I had to write this on 25 pieces, which, you know, I was only there for 5 weeks. So it was kind of a, as I said, labor intensive project. So then I thought, once I was ready to leave, I thought this could be a project that could not become my complete focus or my, like the thrust of what I do, because I do still continue to do other types of work. But I thought there's so much to say about the world or what I think or politics or poetry or something that I thought about when I was 10 years old. But a lot of it does involve social commentary, but not totally. And that, of course, is a result of the state of our country and the world, the planet. We're undergoing lots of trauma and change. And I kind of thought, like, by extending this project into my daily work, that I could, in a way, it was like, it's not really changing the world, because I actually think, in a sense, when art is political, one is sort of preaching to the choir, because your viewer is mostly art people or knowledgeable people, or like, people are always already aware of what these problems are in the world. So anyway, I decided upon coming back to the United States that I would pursue this, and I have. So it's been about 2.5 years, and I've persisted, and I do it, as I said, alongside the rest of the work that I make. And I do post them outside. The first 25 were posted outside in Germany and left to be like taken, stolen, degraded by the elements. But I get photographs of each one. When I came back, I did another set about water, and I left those also. And I did one about blood and the planet, and those were also left outside. But now the ones that I do have gotten a little more complex, and I can't really afford to let all of them go and be like destroyed.
Right.
So now I keep them, I post them outside in certain deliberately selected locations and settings, and I photograph them and I keep them. So the first, I would say I let like 50 go, and now I probably have 100 more, I think, maybe 80.
Do you ever think about, I think maybe we talked about this one time. I think I remember in a previous conversation. So the pieces that are the more recent pieces that you want to conserve, didn't you tell me, or maybe I'm imagining this, that you thought maybe you could make like a print of them or something on less expensive material and have those be the ones that you leave outside to have whatever happens to them? Did we talk about that?
I think that we did briefly, and it's true. I actually don't have a print publisher now. I once did, but I don't now. But I do have somebody who's kind of standing by, and I haven't worked out the details, but I actually am planning to do that. I'm planning, and I haven't decided if it's going to be like, say, 3 versions that I'll create for this project, or take something that I've already, like maybe choose 2 or 3 that I already, or that I've already made and have them printed. It would be a silk screen method. But the other way to do it is to do brand new ones. I'm not sure how I'm handling that yet.
Okay.
But I do have, I think I might have mentioned to you that somebody from an alternative sort of artist-run gallery in, can't remember if it's in the Bronx or where. They're planning a show from a year from now, for a year from now. And we talked about, they want me to do interventions outside again, like interacting with the public in the public arena forum, the public forum. So when I had a meeting with them, we talked about like that I might actually create some for this particular, it's a show, but these would be placed outside.
Right.
They would be left outside.
Right. Right. Which is, I find, I'm like torn between, because I've said to you several times, I really love when you post the intervention, the pieces themselves, because you post on Instagram very regularly that when you do an intervention, you have like, if you do a reel, or mostly reels lately, but you'll show like where the intervention is in its environment. And then you'll have a close-up, and you'll post like the actual piece itself, so that we the viewer, or me the viewer, I can read like what's underneath it, because the handwriting, and then you also type out in the commentary or whatever below the image what it says. But I love what they look like. Like apart from the whatever is being discussed or presented in terms of the commentary, whether it be a social stance about something, or a political stance, or something else, philosophical, idea that you're trying to express, I like the handwork on the piece and how you use color and the marks that the writing makes. I mean, even though I really can't read it very well, I have to actually read what you've typed out, but there's something about the piece itself that's very beautiful. And so I know I've said to you, these, like these by themselves are great, and so I understand like you wanting to conserve the last batch or the more recent pieces and not have them, degrade in the elements outside someplace. Although on the other hand, I really love the idea of them staying out and just becoming part of the environment and whatever happens to them. I mean, there's, the two views or the two positions might sort of contradict one another in a way, because one is very, like conservation, you want to keep it, preserve it. And then the other one is the total opposite, let it degrade. And in that, there is an interesting tension for me, just on an ideal level. Like, is there any reconciliation? Maybe there isn't. Maybe there is a body of work that you do that's conserved, and then another body of work that you just leave out to see whatever happens to it. I find that very interesting, but they are so beautiful. Many of them, I really like them as standalone, what I call a standalone piece. So, I just think it's a great idea. Can we, go ahead.
There's another element to the decision making regarding letting them go and not. And that was something I discovered. I mean, as you work on anything, you learn a lot. And when I was in Berlin, I thought at first, like, oh, I'm going to put these in store windows, or I'm going to go to like these German like vendors and ask them if I can put this on their glass window. And I slowly realized that they're not going to do that. They're paying rent. And their store window is a part of their advertising. They're not going to permit this.
Right.
So then I started like putting them on walls. I mean, the thing is, like, the other thing is like glass is the best as far as adhering them, because they're on watercolor paper. And so it became like an issue, like, where do I post these? Right. So that's the other reason why I can't leave them, because people, like, if it's like, I like the idea of like a funky wall. I like the idea of a garbage can. I like the idea of a commercial establishment. I mean, I did some upstate at Burger King, where they are promoting their like some hamburger, like weird image. And the image that I had used was perfect for this hamburger idea with Burger King, who's like kind of this conglomerate that, is destroying the rainforest with their cattle and cows and stuff. So like, it's easier for me to put it up, photograph it, and then remove it.
Yeah.
Because nobody, otherwise, anywhere you go, like one I did in the subway in Berlin, the next day I went there and it was gone.
Mhm.
So if it's up there for like 2 hours, it's not really going to communicate with anybody.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, all these things have to be considered, and lots of times I now post them in places that are either, yeah, I mean, everywhere, but places that are locations that are easy to put it up and take it down, you know, because people also, they want to know what you're doing. I mean, I had a guy upstate get mad at me. He saw me on a camera.
Oh.
Like there was like a video camera,
Mm.
and the establishment was closed, but they somehow saw me and he drove up. And I said, listen, I'm just doing this like really quick and then I'll be out of here.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I like the whole thing. I mean, really, I would love to do something. Yeah, I would love to do some prints where I could leave them in place.
And just
Do it through this this like little, it's like a non-commercial gallery within the 5 boroughs. They are going to pave the way for me to be able to post these things. So then, I mean, it's complicated, like adventure.
and as most of what really is considered public art, I mean, anything that any art that becomes part of like a public space, whatever it is, it has its complexities and its, you know, logistical things you have to work out. So on various, you know, levels of complexity. So I understand, but this opportunity with the gallery that you're mentioning should be very interesting, because that they're creating basically the space for you.
So that particular, so on my website, I have 2 versions of the interventions. I call them interventions. One is sanctioned and one is unsanctioned.
Can I go there real quick on my screen?
Yeah.
To see it, because I have your website up. Hold on. So yeah, so here, right, you could see my screen, right? Yeah. So you have rogue and you have sanctioned.
Right. No, I have, right, rogue and sanctioned.
Right.
So the rogue is unsanctioned. And so the Berlin project, which is the bottom
Right.
one, that was sanctioned only because Lichtenberg Studios, like it was executed under the auspices of Lichtenberg Studios, which is the little residency that is housed in a small museum in Berlin.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, so those were that was the first group of 25.
This photograph here is so great, where this piece is, how it's attached to this wall. That's gorgeous. I love the stuff, like whatever this graffiti stuff is around it, and then the wall back, you know, the sort of gold, whatever color wall. That's a really nice image.
Well, now I'm looking, I haven't looked at these in a while. The Berlin project pieces, I use tape like that around, and it's like MT tape that is removable. I used that because I thought, like, I was trying to secure them, the first project, trying to secure them so that it would be kind of hard to take them off. And then I realized, because this was November and December of 2019, right before COVID, I realized like the weather in Berlin is like really not good at that time of year. It's very like kind of dark and moody and no sun, and it rains. So I put a few up, and then I realized, God, the rain is just going to kill these things.
Right.
It's the one that was removed immediately. When I went back the next day, it was gone. So there was like this roll of like thin plastic in the studio where I was living and working there. And you can see on these 2.
Right. Yeah, I see the plastic.
And those 2 actually, interestingly, a Berliner contacted me through my website, through email or something.
Mhm.
And a year later, these two were still there.
No kidding, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And these, like what I did here, because I was having such trouble finding locations, that I made holes in these and I
Mhm.
used pipe cleaners
Mhm.
and I attached them to this wire fence
That's
here.
great.
Yeah. But anyway, the plastic, I thought at least it'll, it kept them safe.
Sure.
It was I was there 5 weeks. This was labor intensive. I had to get the trend. And then I had this like more comprehensive text about what I was doing.
Mhm.
And that was translated also. So I met people when I was there, and one of them who was a writer kindly was, I gave her a piece of art in exchange, but
That's great. These are really, so these are the ones that are, they are not the rogue ones. These were part of your residency.
well, I called it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the flag, and then the Habitat for Artists, which is this little hut. I just included those
Mhm.
because they were supported by an organization.
Right. I remember this was last year when you did this. I remember you when you were talking about this, and I saw them as you were doing that. How you posted them on social media. These are all. I mean, here are the pieces that are so cool.
Yeah, that's complicated to talk about, but because we're supposed to talk about the interventions. This is not really an
But
intervention.
that's not really the right.
It's
Right.
like very short. It's like a tiny little artist residency for 3 days.
So
That is located at next to Artport Kingston.
okay. Should we look at some of the rogue interventions?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So these have been placed wherever I've been in the last 2 years, mostly New York and upstate New York.
Mhm.
But I did a few in Pennsylvania because I was there. I did, where else did I do them? Can't remember, because we had COVID.
Right.
Washington, DC, although I don't think Washington is represented here. I did, oh no, that first one is Washington. Go up, that one, the vein, this one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Washington. That's called Sea Fan of the Deep, alias like veins.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So that was in Washington. I think I did 2 or 3 there. And then you wanted to ask me about going to France.
Yeah,
which,
right. I was going to bring that up. So you were just recently, within the last few weeks, you went to France. So yeah, tell me, because I saw what you posted while you were there. Tell me about how that being in that environment affected you in terms of the work that you did there.
well, what I'm doing, as I mentioned initially, is kind of like there's a way in which this is diaristic. I was thinking, even though initially I didn't think about that, now that I've done probably 100 of these, it's like, what am I thinking about today? And there'll be something compelling that I read about or see or hear.
Mhm.
And I do an intervention that represents that thought or topic or condition or
Mhm.
whatever. So I had planned to do some smaller versions in France. I was there for 3 weeks recently. And I like to work when I'm not, when I'm on a traveling thing or whatever. And so while I was there, I was thinking about, and I kind of did a little bit of pre-work, which I always do when I take work that I'm going to work on somewhere. I
Right.
do a little pre-work because it helps me. Once I get there, there's like a springboard,
Yeah.
So I did that pre-work, and then once I got there, I started thinking about the kings of France, and I did one called Cake Eating, which was let them eat cake, which is that famous phrase
Mm.
about like the rich and the poor, the royalty and the, plebeians, or, the common people. So I mean, that's the way like an artist's mind works. You just start to think of stuff. Like I had somebody once ask me, well, how do you think of this? It's like, well, that's what people who make art do. They think of things. And
Well, well, it's what you have, and we all do this in our own ways, where we connect, sometimes divergent thoughts, or, like, we have a tangential thought, like that is, it's like something out here is happening, and it's kind of sparks an idea that you then create something from, and you're able to, make an association, like make them work together visually and content wise. I mean, I get what you're doing. I mean, you're doing this in a way that's very, I think, very unique to you, which is why I'm interested, because you're able to like create this new experience from combining these different ideas, and making something really interesting to look at, and also beautiful to look at. So yeah, it's like, how do you think of this stuff? I mean, how do any of us think of these things? We're able to make these relationships and make them make sense. And that's what's very cool about this.
relationships and connections.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So this was this actually, this was number 2, like the blood. This
Uh-huh.
was choking on blood.
Yeah, these are, I just, so many of these have such a beautiful, painterly quality, and the ones that are a little more graphic with more drawing. The drawing is really great. I mean, I tend to respond to, since I'm generally a painter, so I'm going to respond to those visual qualities, the painting, the color, the mark making, how you use the different materials, is what makes them very beautiful to me.
What I was like, this is really, people always use the word honestly lately, but honestly, like when I started to do this, I felt like I was accomplishing several things for myself.
Uh-huh.
I was accomplishing my need to make art, and I was making a statement which was more political.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt like this could really be a form of communication.
Right.
And I even thought, I really would love to do like a catalog, or like a book or something eventually. And when I spoke to these artists / gallerists and the other day, I said that I had this job in fashion for 13 years, and it was pointed out to me that I have like an ability to educate. And not that that's connected to art or being an artist. Like, I don't really care, but I did start thinking, like, because, I would have to explain at this job, like, why I was choosing the colors I was choosing. And so I would explain to them all these reasons, and like about how color works together and stuff. And then I thought, like, I think like these things that I'm doing, interventions, would be really great in an educational setting, because you could teach kids not only about the issue that this thing is talking about,
Right.
but also how an artist thinks,
Yes.
how an artist works, how an artist takes something from the environment or from their head. And it's kind of teaching people about thinking. So in a way, it's not like art in the way that, like, oh, this painting that's like the best painting in the world.
Right.
It's more like it's something different. So I'm aware of that, and I don't mind.
I think it's great, and I think that's one of the things that I really am drawn to, because you could see the different layers of thinking. You know, it's not just a visual presentation of something that's quote unquote beautiful to look at, you know, like the painting on the wall or the sculpt, whatever, you know, that sort of aesthetic, the primary purpose being aesthetic appeal of some kind. There's that, and then there's these other levels of a thought process that are related, all related to one another, that relate back to the piece, the overall piece itself, and they become part of the piece. So like even as I said, like even here, I could see the writing better in this picture. You know, like everything that you are noting here are all, I mean, they're ideas, and they're ideas about several different things, you know, that relate back to the piece itself. So I think that's very, very, it takes it, I don't know if it takes it beyond, you know, just sort of your sort of stereotypical piece of art, whatever that might be. But it certainly gives one more to think about.
I like probably the other impetus, and I kind of already said it already, but I'm going to say it in a different way, is that I sort of feel like the world is falling apart, and like we all know it. And it's hard for me, although I do it and I love doing it, is sit around making art, not to denigrate what I'm doing or what anybody's doing. Like, this makes me feel like I'm doing something, even if, am I really doing something? Not so much, maybe, but I felt like I had to address these issues, and I never felt that way in my life, because, you know, I mean, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, maybe we've always been worried about that, or to some degree, but now it's like intensified to the point where, you know, I need to talk about it, and this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah, I really feel like I get that. I do understand that, and I think that all of our respective creative processes are perhaps largely driven by the need to communicate an idea, and also to figure out, you know, like figure out our place, you know, in the world, or in our culture, or in society. And making a visual statement is one way to do that, you know, as visual artists. So yeah, it's also about survival, I think, too. You know, it's a way to survive.
Yeah,
it's a way to survive, which I think is.
I mean, a lot of us are in survival mode. I don't think I'm the only one.
No, absolutely.
I'm not like discounting or denigrating myself when I'm doing things that aren't interventions, or other people, other artists. It's not criticism at all. It's just something that I've developed based on that first Berlin experience.
I think that's a very interesting turn of events for you, you know, and because I've looked at, I haven't seen your, you know, like paintings that you did, like, you know, way back, because I've looked at your website, and I can see the chronology of your work, and there is a strong quality in the interventions that relate back to the paintings. I mean, it's definitely your work, you know.
Yeah,
but it's an interesting way in our, you know, in your development, and when we kind of come to a phase where it looks like, wow, I'm really, you know, this is like a really different thing. But then as you work through that phase, you see that it's become part of the whole, like part of the whole picture, you know, part of your whole evolution as an artist. So I think that's it's interesting. I'm curious to see what you're going to do with these, you know, and if, you know, whether or not you go on other travels, and how those travels might affect what you do, or whether or not you make, you know, prints of these and throw them back out there someplace. I think it's all really, really cool. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I wanted to learn more about this.
Well, I think the positive, you know, I've been kind of doom and gloom a little bit here, but the positive is you don't know where life will lead you. Like, and that's a fascinating thing about, you know, I guess I'm referencing being an artist, but it can be, and probably it's truer for artists than it is for the
Yeah,
people, but you know, I never would have predicted that I would be doing this sort of thing if you had asked me 5 years ago or 10 years ago. No, I would have said, I don't think so.
well, yeah. I mean, we artists tend to be, I think, more open to
Yeah,
opportunities, to sort of like follow the creative urge wherever it takes us, like taking a risk or, saying, well, I haven't tried this. But it really is, the compulsion has to be there. Otherwise, we're not going to follow it, you know. So we listen to that generally.
well, and I want to just say this, that I've had some people who have known my work and really admired my work.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure, some people are not very interested in these.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure whether I know they think like, oh, you should do the other stuff. And I am doing the other stuff, but I'm not sure whether it's like, I mean, you and some have taken the time to think about it or look at it.
Mhm.
And these days, because of social media, because of the sort of rat race that we're living in, many don't take the time to look or think. And I don't blame them,
Mhm.
but, you know, I don't know why I'm even saying this, but, I've had some, not naysayers, but I also have had some people who really have taken a look, as I said,
Mhm.
and have like really think it's an interesting, engaging project.
Great. Well, I'm, hopefully one of those people that
Yes, you are.
will continue to support your efforts in this way, and in an effort to keep this crisp, as you have often reminded me. I'm gonna wrap up the talk here so that we can just sort of end it on that note, and then you know, and then maybe when you have another group of interventions, that if you ever want to talk about them, we can discuss them again. Because I think for me, I like talking about ideas because it helps me understand better what the person is trying to do. It's like, it's part of the experience. And I do enjoy hearing, what the artist has to say about their work. So I'm going to end it here.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot, Chris.